Hello! This video takes a look at Humonica, an effect from my JSFX set. Humonica is a harmonizer. How it works is it takes in audio, extracts the timbre of the sound, and then resynthesizes new notes according to a MIDI input using that same timbre. Let's look at an example. We start with a vocal line.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
Now, let's look at this MIDI input. At the moment, it just has resynth on it, so you can hear the notes. So if we remove or bypass resynth, and put it in the same folder as our audio track, we now have the two inputs we need. A MIDI input to provide the notes, and an audio input to provide the timbre for resynthesis. So let's add Humonica to this parents track. If we play, we hear the same words as before but resynthesized to the new note.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
Humonica is not a pitch shifting effect, so we're not expecting it to sound natural. However, the original words are still clearly there. Let's take a look at some of the parameters in Humonica. The first one we'll look at is the stereo detuning. This defaults to a low value, which gives you a bit of stereo width, but doesn't sound too detuned. If we crank it up,
Now you're gone, taking everything.
the sound goes from very detuned to completely dissonant. On the other hand, if you pull it right down to 0, you get no stereo width at all.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
You might hear we have a bit of vibrato in there. We can control this using these dials here, including changing the speed or depth.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
Next, let's put some chords through this instead of just a single note. Now when we play, we hear it play a full chord.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
Let's look at these controls up here in the timbre section. This dial lets you shift the input timbre up and down.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
The tracking dial here determines whether individual notes have their timbre shifted depending on their pitch. If we have this dial to the right, then notes above middle C have their timbre shifted up and notes below middle C have their timbre shifted down. Values near the middle sound most natural, but you can try different things for creative effects.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
The dial on the right here just controls a low-pass filter which is used to soften the sound slightly. The most technical section is the analysis group up here. The most important one is window length. This determines how much past audio is analysed in order to get the timbre. To get better time resolution, you can turn this down, but that comes at the expense of frequency resolution. Turning it up gets you better frequency resolution, which is best if your input is very low pitched. The default is a decent compromise that works okay for most inputs. The overlap dial samples the timbre more often, but it does take up more CPU. The latency switch here lets you control how latency works. Because the timbre is calculated by scanning past audio, this usually adds a bit of latency. However, if we switch this to live mode, it's 0 latency, but the timbre analysis is now slightly behind the MIDI notes being played. This is the best we can do for a live situation. This stereo dial determines whether the timbre is calculated separately for the left and right channels. So for example, if you have things panning across, that will be preserved. However, it is twice as much analysis, so it's off by default. Now, let's take a look at a couple of more creative ways you can use this effect. Here we have a piano part that accompanies the vocal line. This is pre-recorded, but let's pretend it's live.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
Now we're going to copy the MIDI part for this piano. In reality, we do this with routing, but this is simpler for our demonstration. If we re-enable Humonica and switch it to live mode, we can hear it playing the same notes as the piano part.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
That includes some quite low notes which don't sound ideal, because the piano is playing a much wider range of notes than the vocalist would ever sing. So we're going to quickly add in MIDI harmony to here. We won't go into the detail of this now, but this effect essentially shifts all notes up and down octaves so that the same chord is being played in a much closer range of notes around middle C. So you can hear now that the notes are much more plausible for the vocal range.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
If we soften the attack and release slightly, and use Reaper's wet-dry dial to let more of the original vocal through, we hear a vocal line with some background chords.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
If we just add a bit of Springbox to get some ambience, and also include the original piano input, we can hear that it's creating a harmony based on the piano.
Now you're gone, taking everything.
And now for something a bit more odd. Instead of our vocals, we're going to use a whole arrangement as our audio input. So here we have an audio track with the same tempo, but different chords and a different arrangement. It has drums, synths, all sorts of stuff in here. So let's have a listen. And this is what it sounds like with Humonica retuning everything. So that was a quick tour through Humonica. There are links in the description below, including how to install it. I hope you have fun with it. I'm also doing videos for my other effects as well, so do check those out if you're interested.